City Lights on Location traveled to Los Angeles, California to meet with the principals behind the making of one of the year's best films, Coal Miner's Daughter. We spoke with Loretta Lynn, the coal miner's daughter herself, actress Sissy Spacek, who plays Loretta Lynn, and her co-stars, Beverly D'Angelo and Tommy Lee Jones. Also, director Michael Apted and Loretta Lynn's real-life husband, Mooney Lynn. And we'll be right back with City Lights on Location with Coal Miner's Daughter. City Lights on Location now joins Loretta Lynn. We have been talking around and about Coal Miner's Daughter with the people who have worked with you in bringing this film to the screen. And I suppose, having read your autobiography on my way to meet you, and you expressed your attitude about film, and you said at the time you wrote that book, my records are selling, my concerts are booked, I don't really need the movies. I'd like to know at what point you changed your mind and said, I think it's time, we'll do the movie.
You know, this is funny you'd ask me a thing like that. When I got the book wrote and everything, why, I just knew it was going to be a movie. And, of course, I had no doubts in that it wasn't going to be a movie. I think I just started kind of having these feelings. And I said, okay, if you want a movie, we'll give it to you.
Loretta, did you have casting approval?
No, I kind of picked Sissy, and that was it.
Tell me why. What did you know about Sissy Spacek?
Not one thing did I know about Sissy Spacek. I'd never seen one of her movies. I had never seen her or read about her. And I picked her out of a big stack of 8 by 10 pictures, and I said to my manager, I said, this girl right here, Sissy Spacek, will be the coal miner's daughter.
What was in that photograph? What did you see? As a woman who has...
I don't know. I think I felt she had long blonde... She looked nothing like me in the picture. It was a glamour shot. And I don't know if I felt that she could take herself back and play from the time she was 13 up till now or not, you know. But I don't remember exactly what I did feel. I just knew that she would be playing it.
As a woman with the special extrasensory perception you have, did you look at that photograph and think you've known her? Did you feel anything in the picture?
At the time, I didn't feel that. I just felt that that was the only feeling I had. This girl was going to play the coal miner's daughter. But when I met Sissy, I felt like I already knew her. I knew her before we were ever introduced. And I just felt like we just hadn't seen each other in a long time. But, you know, it was just another meeting.
Sissy Spacek said that she'd wondered all those years why she'd kept up her music, what it really meant to her. And then Coal Miner's Daughter came along. She also admitted that early on in the production she was afraid she'd bit off more than she could chew. Did she ever come to you and say, help?
I helped her. I helped her with a lot of the singing and took her to the Grand Ole Opry and got her ready to do Coal Miner's Daughter. She didn't need much help. She had me covered pretty well.
I had a lot of sleepless nights.
What was the turning point, Sissy?
When I decided to do...
When you say early in the production you were afraid you'd bitten off more than you could chew playing Loretta Lynn, when did you regain the confidence?
Well, you know, I just didn't have time to worry. There were times in the middle of the night that I would wake up and think, oh, my heavens, what have I done? And I felt similar things during Carrie. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and think, oh, Lord. But they're just, once you've bitten it off, you've got to go with it. And our schedule was just enormous. I mean, actually, that's not at all what I meant. It was very short. We did it in 9 weeks. And I think the turning point was probably the 2nd week.
Had you been speaking with Loretta?
I didn't. I spent some time with her before we began to shoot. And the one night that I really had the roughest time, she called. And I hadn't spoken to her in weeks. And she called because she was worried about me. And I couldn't believe that she called when she did. But there were things like that that happened from the very outset of the picture.
That extrasensory perception was always with her.
Always.
Maybe she knew you needed her and picked up the phone.
I think she did. I think she did. She's always been that way. I refuse to let her read my palm anymore for fear she'll tell me something I don't want to know.
They say you would not drink tea around her. Fear of the leaves disappearing. When you say you had the same kind of moments during Carrie, what I think is unique, and the first time we met and had a conversation and reminisced about your Canadian experiences, was over Heartbeat. And you've gone from Heartbeat, which I think is one of the finest films of the last decade in America, and I wish that it was getting a greater response. I just don't know what it is that's missing with that kind of film when one sees that ensemble acting and that kind of treatment of a movie. But my point is you have created two living people, Carolyn Cassady, whom you met and knew, and then Loretta Lynn, whom you know very well at this point. I just wonder what it did to you as an objective, creative actress, working and creating people that were near you or available to you. Now, you may have had those problems on Carrie, but that was someone's imagination.
You mean playing a live person?
Yeah.
Well, there's an added pressure because you want so badly to please them, not only to do a good job for the director and everyone involved immediately with the film and for your audience, but you want to please that person that you're playing. But it's also a wonderful thing to have someone, if you need them, they can be right at your side in not a very long time. They were both very inspiring to me, just as a woman. They're both my size. All these things were coincidental. We're all three 5'2.5", all three Southern women. With Coal Miner's Daughter and with Heartbeat, it was odd and very funny because I got to know Carolyn very well and I got to know Loretta very well. And I would, in doing research and talking with them and reading things they'd written and with Loretta doing her music, I would find myself discussing their life with them. And with Carolyn, especially one day, I found myself saying, well, you know, with Neil, it was like, you know, it was just like, and I was explaining, I found myself explaining her life to her. And I had to laugh and think, my gosh, you know, one must be a big person to be able to let someone take your life, make a film of it, change certain situations, and, you know, just to dabble with your life. Must be a shock to see it, too.
But you didn't have to lose 20 pounds to play Carolyn Cassady early in Heartbeat, did you?
No, but, you know, I didn't lose 20, I only lost about 5 for the early part of Coal Miner's Daughter. I think probably they bound me. I said that to someone the other day, and they got real nervous. They didn't realize what I meant. But
And looked at your feet.
they looked at my feet, right. But the span was longer. I'm now very hungry to do something that a film, a contemporary woman that lasts over about a weekend. You know, no, from 13 to 40.
Enough epics.
No
Epic
more
proportions.
epics for a while.
City Lights on Location now joins Beverly D'Angelo in Los Angeles. First of all, there's a high point in your career right now, and I don't mean the movie.
Oh.
That one you've done. But watching you do Patsy Cline in Coal Miner's Daughter is such a thrill, and you are so fine. To go from Sheila Franklin to Patsy Cline and create the two women you've created is just astonishing, and I wonder what it was that you found. What was your secret for your creation of Patsy Cline? Was there one thing you found out about her?
I found out a couple of things that I consider secrets that kind of helped, but I'm not going to tell. There were some, in listening to her songs and talking to the people that knew her, I just found some real resonant chords, and I just kind of let myself respond to it. And then when I was living in Nashville, I would wear a wig and talk with an accent and things like that. In fact, I've seen people at these screenings that I knew in Nashville and been like that close to them and gone, and they don't recognize me.
You know what I wonder, though, Beverly, watching you in the film and knowing in life the relationship, the unique relationship between Loretta Lynn and Patsy Cline, there's a sensation of watching an artist like yourself, who after all those years with Ronnie Hawkins and the band, and all you've done, whether Prince Edward Island, Charlottetown, Canada's very possessive about you. You're very possessive about Canada. What have I done?
Oh, Canada.
We're going to start singing Mon Pays.
Yeah.
But I bring this up because when you watch an artist in a film playing another artist, and that audience are extras paid by a movie company, and you're performing, you always talk about the delayed reaction in the making of movies, and you have to hold on to your self-confidence, even though you're the only one who's proven anything to yourself. But how do you know when you're singing a song in a film and the people applauding you have been paid to applaud you, whether or not you've done it well?
Well, if you're doing it for them, you're kind of missing something, I think. I think you know instinctively if you're doing something well or if you're just faking it. And, you know, by the same token, even if they aren't paid, an audience can't really make you think you're doing something well if you don't actually believe it. I think it's important to get past that. I mean, sure, performing has to do with performing for an audience, but if you place all your value on the audience, then you're losing your center a little bit.
Has anyone talked about, and it wouldn't be a surprise to me, the Patsy Cline story based on this film?
Not yet.
You interested?
Sure. What have you got in mind, Brian?
But I'll tell you, I can imagine it because it is so... You know what you do? You offer the kind of performance. We would see actresses in films creating those wonderful moments like Jo Van Fleet. Your first scene as Patsy Cline is so real that it becomes, while you're in the film, the Loretta Lynn Patsy Cline story.
Oh, do you think? I don't think so. But, well, that was... Patsy Cline was a very important person to Loretta Lynn. And as a matter of fact, when I was researching Patsy Cline, and I went into the archives of the Hall of Fame, I noticed that, first of all, that the most attention that was paid to Patsy Cline had to do with her death, and that, in fact, she became famous when she died, like so many people who become stars after they're gone. But Loretta Lynn's career, at the very beginning, when she first came into Nashville, really had a lot to do with being Patsy Cline's protege, and Loretta Lynn believed that she, you know, had communication with Patsy Cline from the other side of that kind of thing, and that Patsy was guiding her career. So they're very closely linked, you know, I mean, like, they're legends, you know.
You know what I thought of? I asked Beverly D'Angelo because it fascinates me when one knows that you are a musician, composer, singer, actress, and that when a performing artist is on a stage singing, but what you're offering is Loretta Lynn, and the people in the audience aren't an audience. They're paid extras, and they're applauding you. How do you know if what you did is the real thing when the people being applauding are being paid to do it?
Well, they're not being paid much.
No, but is there a
know.
strange sensation of knowing that you're on a movie set, but what you're giving is real? Do you know what I mean?
You really, it's not, it is different than, you're performing, but you're performing as someone else. It is different. The other night we performed at the Roxy, and it was magic, because we were, nobody was filming it, we were just doing it for fun, and there was an extra element. But because we did the things live in Coal Miner's Daughter, there was still a real, I think maybe we were all a little surprised at how real it was.
City Lights on Location returns with our Coal Miner's Daughter special, and we are talking with Mooney. I should be a gentleman and point out that we are talking to Doolittle Mooney Lynn. However, you prefer being addressed as Mooney, true?
Right.
I would like to ask you something because it's a very important point in the movie. And we know from Loretta's autobiography before the film that she was only 14 when you met. And Tommy Lee Jones, who plays you in the movie, explains, as you, he took one look at that girl and he knew that was all he wanted in the world. What did you see in Loretta Lynn when she was 14 that you knew that was what you wanted?
You know, that's a real hard thing to explain, but I went to this pie supper to auction off these pies for the school, and all these kids were out there playing Ring Around the Rosy or Farmer in the Dale or Spin the Bottle or something, you know. And so I went out there and was playing around with them, and I got in the ring, and this one girl, I'm trying to get her name. Anyway, she was wanting to get next to me all the time, and I spotted Lord, and I was trying to get up to her, and I'd even try to get in front of the bottle a little bit or something, you know. But there was just something about her. I walked her home that night because she wouldn't ride in my Jeep, and I just knew that was it, I guess.
Since Mooney, we have seen that wonderful scene in the movie at the function where you auction the pie and you buy Loretta's pie. Had she, in fact, substituted salt for sugar?
She certainly. I always thought it was her mother, you know, but it would later turn out to be her aunt that was standing there, you know, and they cut the pie, and I took a big bite of that pie, and I didn't know what to do, you know. you got to swallow or whatever happened, you know, and it was real embarrassing, and it was her aunt, and she took a bite of it, and it, you know, and she knew right away, you know, and that got me off the hook, you know.
They say love is blind, but I think in your case, love touches the taste buds.
Yeah, there you go.
I'd like to share something with our viewers because there are many moving moments in the film. And I think of a moment in Loretta's autobiography, which does not appear in the film, where Loretta came home after being on the road, and the two of you were having a discussion, and it came down to the color of the wallpaper in the bathroom. And Loretta wanted one color and you wanted another, and you finally turned to her and you said, "I spend more time in this house than you do." And she said, it was true, he did. And I use that only to preface a statement about you as a man who has your own dignity, your own image. What is the turning point for someone like you where you say, yes, she's Loretta Lynn, and to a lot of people she belongs to the world, but she comes home to me? When did you accept that?
That point is growing closer right now, I can tell you that. It's hard to be, you know, alone and home a lot, and we have definitely decided now that we're going to spend more time together, even if I have to go on the road with her more, you know, which I don't like to road, and but if that's what it takes, that's what it's going to be.
Loretta said when she sat down to write the book, there were discussions with you. She said,
Well,
what am I going to do? Should I tell them the truth that we fought and we've disagreed and there have been bad times? And what did you tell her?
I told her, I said, if you're going to write an autobiography, if you're going to tell anything, tell it all. Like I say, she told some things I don't know if I might not have told, you know, but she told them. And I said, as long as it's the truth, tell it, you know, because there's lots of things that embarrassing, you know, but if it's the truth and you've done it, well, if you're going to tell anything, tell it all.
Mooney, how many times have you seen Coal Miner's Daughter, the movie?
I've seen it yesterday for the second time.
Do you believe it's you up there?
I really do. I have that feeling, you know, there's so many things that remind you of so many things that are not actually in the movie, you know, like you're driving down the road and you remember the scene and you feel like you're there, and then in your mind it says, oh, well, I wonder why this is not there, you know, like some little things that we even forgot to tell in the book, you know. But seeing the movie reminds you so much of it, it reminds you of a bunch of other things that really happened that you even had forgotten about. And seeing the movie brings them back, you know.
I'd like to share something with you because you share many things with us in your autobiography. And one of the more moving moments for me in reading your book was the realization that the first time you walked out on stage to sing Coal Miner's Daughter, you suddenly saw that your mother had been sneaked into the wings of the theater.
Oh, my. That was real hard on me. The record was a big hit, and I look around and here stands Mommy, you know. I started crying, And it was pretty sad.
Are we to believe, because we have that moment in the movie, that in the movie, Sissy Spacek is not singing Coal Miner's Daughter for the first time, since she gets all the way through it?
I think, no, that wasn't for the first time, because I think when Sissy sang the Coal Miner's Daughter in the movie, it was already a hit, wasn't it? Yeah, I mean, she'd already, in the movie.
I just wondered if artistically you had decided, because you have very emotional moments within the film with Sissy and your mother, that you didn't need that moment.
I didn't need that moment, no. There were so many sad moments and hard to live through, even just in the movie. There were times were so much worse and so much sadder than we had them in the movies. But if they'd have put them in the Coal Miner's Daughter movie, it would have been hard for people to have really related to it, because we didn't want people to go out of the movie feeling down. I wanted them to really not feel depressed about anything. And that's what I think that they tried to capture in the movie, and not making it too sad.
I asked your husband, Mooney, during our conversation, how many times he had seen the film, and if he believed he was actually looking at his life and that it was Tommy Lee Jones being him. And he said something quite wonderful about the memories flooding back and the realization that whether it was the Jeep or the road, that a scene in the movie would remind him of something that wasn't in the movie that he had forgotten in his life.
Yeah.
What about you?
That's the same way. I remembered so many more things when I watched the movies. And I said to myself, well, why didn't I think of this? You know, this would have been a great shot for it too, but you can't remember everything, you know, till something makes you remember.
People remember a lot about you, and there are many reasons to respect you and have affection for you, even strangers.
Thank you.
You're welcome, it's true. But there are many of us who remember the time you were on the David Frost show. And people thought that Loretta Lynn had a message out there and she was helping womankind.
Mm-hmm.
However, that particular day you had Betty Friedan discussing the movement. Do you remember what you did on the David Frost show while she was talking?
I went to sleep, didn't I? I was tired.
Nothing to do with what Betty was saying.
It was probably pretty boring, because that was quite a show. I flew in there to do the show, and she come out and talked about woman's lib, and they didn't get a picture of me falling off to sleep. And then a doctor had come out and talked about his book. It was about sex. It was a sex book or something. And I thought, my gosh, this show's getting boring. And I went to sleep. And they caught that on the film. So when the show was over, my husband was in the green room watching. He said, Loretta, don't ever let me catch you out there on the set ever again with your eyes closed.
And so you've never done a show that Gloria Steinem was booked on?
No, but while right in the middle of her conversation, David Frost, the camera went to me, and there I was sleeping. And they left the shot on me, and he says, what about you, Loretta? What do you think? And I said, yeah, I think the same thing. It's embarrassing.
When you share something as intimate with us, when we read about the customized bus and you working, and we know, and there's a very graphic presentation in the film of the pressures and special demands that go into a life like yours. Mm-hmm. And we can realize that in 1 year you were hospitalized 9 times for exhaustion. Mm-hmm. And you get on that customized bus and you say, I'm lonelier than a prisoner. I don't draw the curtains because I've seen the country and it all looks the same.
That's true.
What keeps you going?
Well, now what keeps me going is I know that the hardest part is behind me, and from here out, I'm just going to kind of spend more time with my husband. Me and him are going to spend more time together that we have lost in the last 15 years. I think it's our time.
City Lights on Location will return in a moment with Beverly D'Angelo, Sissy Spacek, and a scene from Coal Miner's Daughter. When you say about Patsy Cline, with all you learned, and the fact that you not only got every one of her records, you had original master tapes, you spoke with her husband.
Well, I worked with her, I spoke with one of her husbands. I worked with her original producer, and the same people that played on the tracks for the Cline songs in the film played on the tracks when they recorded them. The Jordanaires came in and sang backup. In fact, when we were trying to get the voice just right, I found that if I that it was not that difficult to kind of capture the essence of her voice using my tools. And we even tried recording at one point on the original condenser tube tape recording thing, because there was just some tone that I couldn't really get, and I couldn't figure it out, because it, by all rights, I should have been able to capture that tone with my own voice. And then Owen said it's because we were using condenser tubes instead of, you know, the electronic deals that they use now in recording.
When you express the admiration and the respect you do for people who played a part in your career, like Ronnie Hawkins, and you say that he is one of our unsung heroes, he's a star without a hit. And then you talk about Patsy Cline now, and you say she was a generous, loving woman who never got her shot.
Well, her career was very short. It was just a few years, and then she died. She was not really peaking. She hadn't really established a style before she died. And so, I mean, like, she never really, I don't think, had an opportunity, except in Nashville, to set up a space for herself.
And Ronnie Hawkins?
Well,
star without a hit?
Yeah.
How important is that, Beverly?
A hit?
Yeah. I mean, when you say a star without a hit, how does one sustain the stardom? Because we're always taught, we're taught by the media, number one with a bullet, number 14. We hear in the movie that Loretta's number 14 and climbing, and everything becomes that climb. And then you can assess a career and say he's an unsung hero, Ronnie Hawkins, a star without a hit. What I'm saying is, why the addition of without a hit?
Well, because the connotation of a hit is that market-wise, he has an audience that's far beyond what he can reach by live performance. Ronnie's biggest contact comes in his live performances. He doesn't have records that are going out, you know, to people in Texas every week the way that he's appearing, you know, in the El Macambo and things like that. I mean, his circumference is pretty much based on his own real person. A hit broadens the horizon and just makes your energy known to a lot more people.
Sounds good. I'll tell you what, let us take a commercial break and have a look at a scene from Coal Miner's Daughter with Beverly D'Angelo.
Can I say hi to my friends in
Please.
Toronto?
What would you like to say to Canada?
Terry Asselstein. I would like to say hello to him because we always watch your show together. And we go, Brian Linehan's on.
Anybody else? Anybody left over in
no,
Vancouver?
I shouldn't have even started.
What?
I shouldn't have even started because, I shouldn't have even said that. Let's just stop it there because if I start naming and I forget somebody, then...
Why don't you say you're sending me home with a note?
I'm sending you home. I'm sending him home with a note. Okay?
And we'll be right back after this break.
It's a lie.
City Lights on Location will return with director Michael Apted, actor Tommy Lee Jones, and a scene from Coal Miner's Daughter. If I can ask you to begin this conversation after looking at that scene, when you say that there's always one perfect actor for a role, what was it about Tommy Lee Jones that convinced you before that meeting that he was the actor you wanted?
Well, I mean, I think I needed a very strong actor. I needed, because the film is about two people. It's not Sissy doing a tour de force as Loretta Lynn. It's about a relationship, so I needed a very strong, experienced actor. And I thought Tommy had that, of course. He had a large body of work that was very varied in things, and I could see a lot of the different elements that I was looking for in Mooney. Here was an actor, one of the few actors I've ever met, who had a real instinct for, and don't misunderstand, I don't know the right word, but for a backwoods. I mean, someone who understood the sort of area and people that we were going to be dealing with, who had part of his life, part of his experience was from there, so he had a lot to draw on. And also, I've always thought Tommy was an exciting actor, and it's such a huge part, and we just needed that excitement. I just thought the combination of Sissy and Tommy was original and was exciting.
That's succinct.
Good.
Tommy, when Michael speaks this way and you explain, as you have, that you have a responsibility to Mooney, to people like him, and to people who know him and love him,
Yeah.
what is that responsibility?
As an
to
actor.
make an honest representation of the man.
Is this the first time in your career that you have created a character that was indeed a real person?
No, I've played other characters that who actually lived. Did a television show about Howard Hughes, and I played Howard Hughes. It's not quite right to say that this is that I created the character. I didn't create the character. Mooney created the character, and saved me a lot of trouble. I wouldn't, you know, if it was a fictional character, I'd have to invent certain things about the character, the way he looked, talked, felt, thought, and these things exist. So it's a question of reproducing them and making them part of Michael's concept of the film, and, you know, bringing Mooney to the film. It's not like having to create a character and then bringing him to a film. It's an easier job, basically.
Then you had the advantage of having the real person teach you how to drive that bulldozer.
That's right. I had the advantage of having a real person teach me how to run a bulldozer and teach me how, you know, just from being around him, I could see how he wore his hat and what he did with his shirt sleeves as the day wore on. So there were all manner of details that were provided by Mooney, who is a very, very rich character.
Michael, I'd like to ask you something, because there's always a conflict in the Emerald Isle of Beverly Hills when film deals are being put together, and one hears legendary stories about people like Sue Mengers or Swifty Lazar. You are a man with tremendous credentials in England, in television. You have won every award available to you, and like colleagues like John Schlesinger or others, you are prepared to do a commercial between
No,
award
I never
winning.
have, actually.
You never have?
No, I'm from television. I mean, there are others, Alan Parker, Ridley, they come from that world, but I never have. I don't know reason, it's just that's the way the cookie has crumbled.
All right. Would you tell us what advantages you think you arrived with from England to do a film so indigenous to the American soil?
Well, I mean, I think the one thing which I didn't realize, frankly, until, I don't know, until quite well into it, was it occurred to me that maybe the fresh eye, you know, that the fact that I didn't have any prejudice or any opinion about what is clearly a very controversial part of America. I mean, the very poor white area of America is something that I think certain people from the big metropolitan areas of America have an attitude towards. I mean, I didn't know they had that attitude, although I'd seen it, a hint of it in Nashville, the movie Nashville, especially an attitude of Beverly Hills towards country music, for example. But I think that the fact that I had this fresh eye could have been a strength, because there's a tremendous amount of Hollywood stereotyping about those people. And although there isn't a great heritage of good films about the Appalachians, I think the only, in modern cinema, the best evocation of that place was A Fellow Countryman of Mine, which is Borman's opening 10 Minutes of Deliverance, you know, and so that was encouraging, and I think maybe in certain delicate areas of American life, an outsider can bring something to it.
Considering the amount of film activity in Canada, have you been reading any Canadian co-production scripts?
No, I mean, they don't come my way, I think mainly because they're looking for Canadian personnel, Canadian directors and whatever, so I've never been involved, it's never come my way.
Tommy, have you been reading any scripts submitted by Canadian producers?
I read one, I think it was called Silence of the North.
Yes. The one Alan Burstyn is doing now with Tom Skerritt. Well, who knows? I may see you both next in Canada. I thank you for this encounter.
Oh,
Thank you.
I'm moving to Montreal tomorrow. Well, I'll probably run into you.
See you there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
City Lights on Location will return in a moment with the coal miner's daughter herself, Loretta Lynn.
Do you know what I thought of watching you in the film? I was thinking of those moments when you were in New York with your relatives, Rip Torn and Geraldine Page, and you would go to Jerry Page's dressing room when she was in black comedy, pull out your guitar and play and sing for her, and she would cry. And it just seemed so full circle from the woman who said, I always wanted to succeed as an actress because I never wanted to embarrass Rip or Geraldine. And I think the past year of your life in these two films are spectacular.
Thank you, Brian.
My pleasure. I look forward to welcoming you back to Canada.
Well, I'm going to get my skis and I'm going to come up there, get out of this rain.
A good idea. I thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Pleasure.
May I just point out, in the middle of this exchange of admiration for you, that you have one of your vacation homes is in Mexico, but you have another one in Canada. And Canadians might be curious, without giving us the address, is it anywhere in British Columbia?
It certainly is.
You and Mooney never forgot, did you, all those trips from Washington State into BC?
Yeah, I love that part of the country. Really, you know, it was the Canadians that really started me in the business. Did you know that?
Tell us how.
Well, I sang in a little club right up next to the Canadian border, Blaine, Washington, not too far from Vancouver. And this fellow by the name of Mr. Burley, Norm Burley, had a big lumber yard up there. And of course, there were some other people went in with him when he started to label. So he come down, he heard me sing, and he put me on the Zero label in the United States, and on the London label in Canada. But it was the Canadian people that was filling up the house every night where I was working in the little club. Oh, I love Canada, and I love the Canadian people. They all want to have a good time, and I like that because they're not depressed people. You know, it's good. They're always laughing.
Well, let me tell you, the possessiveness and the affection is reciprocal.
Thank you.
Because you are loved in Canada, as you know, from Hamilton Place to Vancouver to Montreal.
Well, I sure love everybody up there.
I thank you.
Thank you.
And I thank you for Coal Miner's Daughter.